What's happening, Dan?
Yeah, what's happening, man? How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. I don't know whether it's. I mean, people don't want to see my ugly mug anyway, so I just keep it on the light. Yeah. How did you find the Marvin Hagler event?
Yeah, I like it. Obviously, Marvin's before my time, innit? So, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Boxing
How
wise.
old are you? You must be in your mid-30s.
Yeah, 34.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe, isn't it? I mean, were you sort of conscious, as they say, when Marvin Hagler fought Sugar Ray Leonard?
No.
You was primary school and that.
What year was that?
1987.
Well, I'd have been 1 year old then. I was born 1986.
Yeah, damn good memory to remember that then, isn't it? Bloody hell, boy. No, because some kids are sharp, innit? So, yeah, but I hear what you mean.
Yeah, the first one I remember watching was Tyson Bruno 1989. That's the first fight.
Yeah.
I can recollect that fight. That's the first fight I can recollect watching on TV.
Like memories and stuff, yeah. Like, oh, look, yeah, Mike Tyson is fighting. Because I think your generation, Tyson was the man, innit? He was like the icon at that time. Your first icon.
Yeah, because my dad and my uncle, that's all they used to talk about is him, innit? Because he was like a street guy, and they were to that sort of era. So yeah, my dad and my uncle, mum, and everyone in the school, innit? The father felt everyone, Mike Tyson, even like come to America.
Sorry, I'm just going to close the door so it gets bloody. Yeah, cool. Sorry, man.
Yeah, he's unheard of. And then Nigel Benn after, because he went his daughters went the same infant and primary school as my cousin Craig and his two sisters, Craig Richards and they went all together.
Yeah, because I've got family in Ilford, from another strand of my family, and a lot of them went to the same schools as the Nigel Benn family, like Loxford High School and stuff like that. One of my aunties was in Nigel Benn's younger brother's class, circa 1985, 1986. Okay. So, yeah. Anyway, talk a bit of boxing then. I'll let you lead, man, and then...
Yeah, so what's your thoughts on the Errol Spence and Pacquiao bout coming up in August?
I mean, Spence is a favourite, isn't it? Basically. Yeah. I mean, he's come back well from his injury, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Because he was like completely messed up, and I thought he might not do too well, but as soon as he came back, he's done the business. Pacquiao's in with a shout, but I don't know, at that sort of age, you can age very quickly in a fight, can't you?
Yeah.
So
what do you think?
60-40 Spence in it, maybe 70-30.
Yeah. So what do you think about the do you think they're going to be testing going on for this fight?
Who's that? Pacquiao and Spence?
Yeah, for some testing.
Yeah, no, interesting you should mention about testing and that, because Bennett and Spencer were talking about it. No, not Ben and Spencer. Julian McGowan and Ben on their channel, and they were saying that basically since Spence since Pacquiao in the past few fights and that, Pacquiao hasn't had any knockouts and things, and he doesn't look as built. He doesn't look as sort of like, buff or whatever they call it. And everything has probably something to do with, getting off the drugs and that. He hasn't been able to, wangle the drugs kind of thing.
Yeah, well, because it's funny when once Floyd called it out and said I wasn't tested done years back, I wasn't able to knock out laid out himself by Marquez. Marquez once in the first three fights. All of a sudden, Marquez had him down twice in that fight.
Yeah.
And then
down and out.
Yeah, loses to obviously Floyd, loses to Jeff Horn, and then he went away for a bit. I think I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden he knocked out Lucas Matisse. And then after the last few fights, he ain't Broner takes a good shot, so I didn't expect him to be able to stop Keith Thurman. But I know that him and Keith didn't do Vardy. But I think Keith was happy about that because he probably needed it because remember he was on he just come off that shoulder surgery thing anyway. So
yeah. What do you think of Keith Thurman? Because I rated Keith Thurman. I still rate him. I think he's got some chances, but either a combination of a long layoff and mental health problems, he seems to have sort of like dropped.
yeah, I don't know what's going on with Keith.
I had him as the man at welterweight. I remember years ago when Keith Errol Spence called him out and he said, "Hold your horses, small soldier, a young soldier," or something like, "Your time will come." You know, like dismissive, like a school kid kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now the roles have been reversed here, and Spence is like the big dog, so to speak, and Thurman's like, you know, oh, can I get into the picture? And he can't sort of quite get in there, innit?
Yeah. It's funny that. Shout out Rashad. Shout out veteran inside. Yeah, but yeah, it's funny. What's his name? Thurman. He don't really want to. He doesn't seem like he wants to talk for some reason.
Yeah. There's a bit of there's a. It's that sort of like he doesn't really want a part of him, but he doesn't want to act as if he's sort of scared shitless of the guy. So he's trying to give that big talk. Yeah, come on and go on, and you know, like that, but from a distance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because did you remember that press conference? I forget who it was. It was someone was ahead of him, and then Keith was like, "You better not duck me, son. You better not duck me."
Yeah, he's got a weird lisp in it.
Yeah.
I like his style. I like the way he talks and that. Is he half Chinese or something? If you don't mind me asking.
No. He's just. I think his mum's just white and his dad's black.
Yeah. I think he's married to an Oriental though, isn't it? East Asian, or he's got some like somebody.
I don't know. I saw it. He's got a black woman.
I don't know. I thought he had like an Asian woman.
No.
Or Asian or something like that. You know, Hawaiian or some sort of.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think she's just black. I've seen her.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember
anyway, chat that, you know, sometimes two brothers have in it, you know, some random shit. Yeah.
Badintentionsboxing. How's it going?
I don't know whether that might be. Yeah. So yeah, I've got 70, 30, 60, 70, 30, I think probably sounds about right for the Spence Pacquiao. Maybe 60, 40. And what do you think of the joke that is well, I don't know if it's a joke or not, because our friend EJ Boxing Live, Errol Jarrett, he's quite infused by it. Oh, you got another guy in there? Hello, my friend.
Mate, you're right.
Yeah, not too bad. We were just talking about the welterweight, the boxing, and just as you came on, I was about to go on to ask about your guys' thoughts, and now you're here as well, about the Logan Paul. Is it Logan Paul?
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather. What you think of that? I mean, obviously, I think almost every proper boxing fan thinks, what, you know, they're just scratching their head and thinking, oh dear, facepalm job. But our friend EJ Boxing Live, Errol Jarrett, he seems to be quite infused by it. You might not like me saying that, but he actually seems quite infused by it. You know, like his posts look like quite. You know how he reports about proper boxing? His posts seem to be quite infused about it. You know, he's like quite excited, like, you know, big up fight. Oh, my man, you know, the legend is back in business, kind of thing. Oh, Matt Sakaraka's there. Matt's there.
What's your thoughts? What's your name exactly?
Brett, it's Badintentionsboxing.
Okay, yeah, Badintentionsboxing.
Oh, Brett, yeah, cool.
Oh, Brett, okay. So what's your thoughts?
I think we've probably allowed boxing to get into this state as to where it is, in terms of that you've got YouTubers and all these social media outlets and guys that are fighting and earning more money than actual professional paid athletes, which probably is a travesty in itself if you look at it like that. But I think we live in a society, in a world nowadays, where people like to watch shit. If there's shit on there, people will tune in and people will watch it. You only have to ask and look at it and say, how comes Josh Taylor, in an undisputed fight, was not picked up by a major TV network, but will show Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather for $15.95. Like, it's not good. As funny as it is, and what we're talking about, yeah, it's all money. It is all about money, because for every one of us that's saying, I'm not going to do it, enough people are going to pay to watch that.
Yeah. The thing is, do you think that's symptomatic, though? And a couple of the veteran boxing scribes, the social media in general, like, I don't know whether you know Ben Doughty or people like that, Julian McGowan, but one of the things they mentioned, and I think that's a sort of, the Logan Paul is a reflection of that, is about the ticket selling culture. I mentioned to you as well, Dan, over the years, how it's all about the ticket sale. If you can sell tickets, that's all that really matters. Yeah.
You're not wrong again, and I had a conversation about this the other week. You've got some British fighters that are on great runs at the moment. People like Maxie Hughes. If you can look anybody and tell me over the last year or so, anybody in British boxing who's had a better run than that guy, and he's got a big fight coming up soon, but he's somebody who's never sold masses of tickets, so he's perhaps never had those big 4 fights. John O'Carroll, is probably earning decent money fighting on Triller, but he lost, I think, last time out against Maxi. Ticket sales is obviously what a promoter wants, because if you sell tickets, you make the promoter's job easier. It's just that we're seeing, again, decent fighters that aren't being able to come through and get on the shows because they can't sell tickets. But again, it's how you market it. You look at somebody like Anthony Joshua, he would have never had to sell a ticket because how he's been marketed by over at Sky Sports and Eddie Hearn, and he's literally had the A-list of everybody backing him commercially. He wouldn't have ever had to put his hand in his pocket for anything. But we've got so many other boxers out there at the moment that are going to be able to go on and push on, but they're not going to get onto that stage because that's life. Not everybody's going to have that backing, are they? I mean, for example, I was talking the other day again, I was talking to another guy, Wingy Boxing, and we were talking about Craig Richards. You look at that fight that he had against Bivol, and everybody was like, no, he's not going to get anywhere, he's not going to get anywhere. And I sat in on the press conference and he really buzzed me and hyped me up, and I was really hoping that he was going to go and get there and get the job done. But he's an individual that would have come away from that and took more away from probably that lots because he knows how to push himself on than anybody else. But again, matchroom fighters will sell tickets because the name of the promoter will sell the tickets themselves. If you don't have that, and I think this is what things like Fight Zone TV, etc., are going to allow what we class as small hall promoters in this country to be able to do. Your Dennis Hobsons, your Carl Greaves, all these other guys, it should give them and their fighters a platform to be able to sell those tickets.
Yeah. Makes sense, because I remember the days of, Miranda, Elliott, those small hall shows on a Sunday. It's very tough. And I'm not quite, there was hey, to get on the show, they didn't make no money, they'd actually be at a deficit. So shows like Fight Zone, the companies like Fight Zone, quite handy, because as you said, if you're fighting on a maximum show, even if you're an undercard, you say, I'm fighting on a maximum show, because of the fucking people are more inclined to buy tickets and cash now rather than going on, especially back in the day when StubHub and that was floating around. We'd rather just buy it at face value rather than going on StubHub. But he was due to fight Keith, I think, for the he was meant to challenge him for the. I think that probably looking to schedule that back.
I'm sorry, just for my screen went. You also find a lot. But the thing about it is, a lot of guys that have won medals. Because what used to happen is, you either had to sell lots of tickets, or you had to have some sort of international, like an Olympic gold. You was talking about Brett. You was talking about Anthony Joshua. I mean, he had the Olympic gold, so he's already hit the jackpot anyway with that Olympic gold.
Yeah.
Even if it got a bronze, it'd probably like. Joshua Buatsy, for example. Joshua Buatsy got the bronze, but everybody thought he's put himself in the shop windows, because those Olympics, for example, I think that's the only really tournament I can think. Possibly World Amateur Championships, but even like the ABAs or the ABAs back in the day, that used to be on Saturday afternoons on BBC One, or I think it was back in the day, and you used to see the talent upcoming like Joe Calzaghe and people like that. But even good quality amateur champions are now struggling to sort of get onto the wagon, aren't they?
Commonwealth Games as well.
Yeah, Commonwealth Games.
Difficult though, because it's not so much, you know, and we talk about ticket sales, and when we talk about the commercial value of a fighter, it's that classic analogy nowadays that if you're an elite level boxer, you must be seen on a JD Sports advert. Do you know what I mean when I say that? You are in the limelight for that particular age category.
Adverts, Floyd, they got Floyd Mayweather on the Boohoo adverts. You know, that's just a random comment that I make.
You know, again, it's how these guys are getting out there. And when you just mentioned there about Olympic boxing, you look at somebody like Josh Kelly. You know, he's got fast hands and he's got all the skills, but when push comes to shove, he folds. You know, I'm not being disrespectful when I say that, and I think it's happened, and I think it proved it against David Avanasian. I know Carl Greaves quite well, you know, and that was a conversation that we had.
It's sort of legend, grassroots legend and that.
But that's what we were saying in terms of a conversation, and he told us throughout the whole fight that Josh will crumble after 5 because of the way David is. David will just put it on it. And he did, but again, you know, that is reflective of what you said. He had an Olympic, he fought on the Olympics. There was a lot of hype about him, and he's so far not reached, pardon me, the heights of where he's supposed to be.
Yeah. Because Dan and the boys on the earlier on in this live thing, they were talking about Kelly and that, and you know, I think one of the guys mentioned that he sort of drops. Technically, there's flaws in his makeup, like fighting with a hands held low style. I mean, I've got nothing against that, but I think when you fight with that hands held low, that's all right. But when you then punch, you got to set yourself, and you know, it's got finding the balance between the flash and the actual sort of rock solid substance, if you know what I mean. Sometimes against Avanasian, he might have come a bit unstuck there, isn't it? Because against those higher up the sort of like the strata you go in terms of boxing, you know, the better quality opposition, they'll pick faults in your armory, won't they?
Do you think, though, you know, when we talk about that fight there for a European title, and I think it was a belt with a bit of prestige that had probably lost that reputation it had for a long time, but that fight felt like that night sort of pulled it back a little bit. And I think it showed levels. You know, you've got somebody like Avanasian who is on that fringe of world level. You know, Matchroom come out the other week and saying that Conor Benn's going to fight for the European title, and David hasn't vacated. It's very much,
he might fight
where are you going with that?
He might fight for one of those trinket European, because for me, I think for even maybe for yourself, you may be of the same thinking. I think most traditional boxing fans, the EBU title, you know, what's the traditional European title? That's the European title, and then F and WBO European titles. I mean, they're sort of like the sort of cheaper imitation version, and a lot of it sort of says. For example, Ted Cheeseman.
Yep.
I know his uncle Bob, great uncle Bob, very well. So I'm minded to be not too critical. But Ted Cheeseman's, I think he's won a version of some sort of European title or something. You know, WBF or something. He's British champion, but I think in between he won some sort of WBF or something like that. Some sort of trinket.
No. He fought. Garcia,
and he lost for the European, didn't he?
Yeah, and and the thing is, a lot of guys in recent years they've won sort of various WBF European titles and things like that. But when they've come up for the actual EBU title, you know, what you'd say the proper European title, or something along that level, they've been found wanting a bit. So.
Again, I think that's level and class, though, isn't it?
Sorry?
Again, I think that's level and class, and I suppose that's probably what we were saying there. You know, Avanasian that we're talking about has that actual EBU title that we're talking about, not one of these other versions that comes from the governing bodies.
No, let what it is, I know what Sajjad's talking about. He's getting a bit muddled up. There's two European ones, but there's one what's a bit funny. So there's the real one, the EBU European, and then there's a EBU European Union, which is like the
European Union. Yeah, but the EU is the proper dominant, basically.
It's the one that Tony Yoka holds. Tony
Yes.
Yoka holds the European Union one, where Joe Joyce holds the real one.
The EBU, the official. But then you have a look, Cash Ali last week won the what? IBF European Heavyweight.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And Anthony Yard's got like a WBO European as well.
Yeah.
Frank Warren fighters have that one as well. But those ones.
But that leads us on to the next one there that you're talking about. The light heavyweight division in this country is booming.
Yeah.
That's a good weight division that we've got that we can put a lot of emphasis on within this country at the moment. You think straight off the top of your head, you've got Callum Johnson, Buatsi, Craig Richards, Yard, Lyndon Arthur. 5 of those fighters there, you would probably expect to find across most, probably if not all, top 10 governing bodies.
Yeah. Especially the WBO or even the WBC and all that. People talk about how the WBC used to be the best of the titles, but sometimes the top fights nowadays are being made. You get just as good quality fights in the WBO title, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't think WBC's top anymore. They've lost.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
WBA's gone way down here. I think the IBF is probably the most. I think IBF is the most.
It's most sincere and sort of like settled integrity, yeah. Because the WBA, you mentioned that they've got like about 4 champions in each of their division, including franchise champion in recess, champion, regular champion, super champion. They come all. I think that's
gold champion.
Yeah.
I think when I had a look the other week, I think you've got Manuel Char holds a version. Trevor Bryan, I think, holds some sort of version. Obviously, you've got AJ. I think there's about 5 different versions of that heavyweight title that you can have. I think, with what the WBC did when they went to franchise, etc., and all this other stuff, which supersedes anything, I think the IBF, like we were talking there, is probably the only ones that have kept it sort of real, and they keep their mandatory, pushing along. The others seem to have. It's allowed what we were talking about earlier, those guys with that commercial backup and, and money and clout that they've got behind them, who sort of navigate and circumvent through, rather than having the top fights, pick and choose who they want to fight realistically.
Yeah, because even going back to the light heavyweights, with the WBA, Dimitri Bivol's got the official WBA, and then you've got, what's his name? Jean Pascal. And then you've got.
He failed the drug test, hasn't he? Yeah, we'll go to that in a minute. Yeah, Karen.
Then you've got Fedor Shudanov as the WBC gold champion. He's defending that. So it's like, come on.
There's too many, and it's allowed the game, like we were talking about earlier, and this is what's allowed this element of these Logan Pauls and Jake Pauls, to come through and make absolute millions. I mean, I don't know how true it is, and I haven't really looked into it, but they were saying Logan Paul's going to make like 18 million from this next fight. And I think the rules are something like, what is it? It's 3 8-minute rounds. There's no judges. There'll be no winner declared at the end. Knockdowns are at the discretion of the referee. Like, what are we doing? It is making a mockery of the sport, and this is, I think, what's allowing these YouTube celebrities, and people to come through that are becoming involved in boxing. And then when we go on and we're talking about the guys that are really striving and trying to change their life and get somewhere where they are, they're not getting the recognition because it's been taken by some fool from wherever and whenever. I think we've lost that element of respect in the sport, but there's so many various issues that have allowed that. We're talking about ticket sales, marketability, commercial value, all of these things feeding into that. And with the current pandemic that we've just had, where people have just sat at home, and I'll put my hand up and say, I sit at home some days and just watch crap on YouTube, it's just allowed this void to be filled.
Yeah. But the thing is, you see with these exhibitions, they're not really exactly new. Because Ali was doing exhibitions back in the day. Harry Holmes did them. Sugar Ray Leonard did it. All the only difference now that it's a lot bigger prize money. Joe Lewis used to do it, especially when he went bankrupt. But I don't think it's a mockery because it's only next. You don't go on his box rec. He ain't going to be 51 and 0.
But imagine if he goes in there, and obviously whatever happens, imagine he just gets absolutely walloped on his chin, and he just gets on the floor and he can't get up. You know, it has that ability where it will lose some sort of. I think from the average armchair fan, you know, and again, I'll call myself that because I'm not actively out there fighting. I'm not living, you know, this life that other people are living. But to sit there and in one breath we're emulating these guys, but then on another breath we're saying, well, you know, I'm going to tune in to watch him fight an ex-Disney actor. And that's not being disrespectful. If you're an actor and you're making your money, you do your thing. But how we're getting and allowing the crossover and we're seeing it advertised on pay-per-view television is just it's ridiculous.
I mean, Julio Cesar Chavez, for example, has... I'll just turn the light on because otherwise it looks like you lot all covering, you know, I'm hiding away kind of thing. Julio Cesar Chavez still has fairly decent exhibition bouts with all, you know, with ex-champions and that. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but I mean, he has... But they're marketed as exhibitions, whereas I think some of these... you know, the Logan Paul fight, it's almost like people are now thinking it's actual proper boxing. So you look at the crossover appeal, it almost, I mean, obviously we don't, but I think a lot of people are actually thinking, oh wow, yeah, Logan Paul's fighting Floyd Mayweather, man, that's going to be a bad fight.
It's the target audience as well, though, isn't it?
Used to talk about proper fights being...
If you get a load of kids or a load of young lads that are going to sit up and they're going to stay around and they're going to watch the fight because they know who these people are, that's clearly what the target audience is. They're not looking to get guys like me and you to tune in and pay and watch it. That's certainly not what it is. And again, it's about that way that they've marketed it, which again goes back to why Josh Taylor's fight was never put on, you know, any major broadcaster within this country, because clearly for some reason somebody's seen that the demand wasn't there and we've decided not to push it out, which is a travesty when we're pushing out the other fight. But that is what it is. That's what TV networks do. They're journalists at the end of the day.
Yeah, but that's quite surprising because Josh Taylor is marketable.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you know, he's a good-looking kid. He can box. You know, he's got a bit of personality about him. Family life's all right. His missus quite fit, so to speak. Yeah, that's what I look at. I mean, that's what, you know, when Carl Froch fought Andre Ward,
yeah.
Virgil Hunter, he said, the only thing Carl Froch has got in his favour, he's got a very good-looking wife. And I mean, he said something like that, if you ever remember that. That just cracked me up. I just don't, you know, it's really, that's the surprising thing for me because he's actually marketable. I mean, there's some guys that aren't marketable, but he's marketable.
Yeah.
He's a champion at the end of the day, you know, and he is a good fighter. He's had a lot of fights, but I don't know. I think it was just odd where it came and why it never fitted in.
Yeah.
Big up. What's your name there? Jay. Yeah, how's it going, man? What are we saying? Yeah, we're talking about the travesty. Taylor not being TV deal.
Go on.
Maybe the signal wasn't coming on properly or something like that.
It weren't great. You could hear it going on in the background. But then I suppose on another subject, what's going to happen with Sky Sports now?
Well,
because Dazn got they got a new deal now, haven't they?
5 years, so it'll be a 5-year deal, and I think they said it's starting off. I may have just pulled this number out from where I've slept since yesterday. Was it 31 initial events? So a year they're looking to get. Was it 31 or?
Big plans, big pipeline plans. That's for sure.
AJ, I suppose the irony is AJ's still got one fight left on Sky. And I think that the last event it'll be a big one, because I think the way that they'll market in Sky will make sure they push it, that they're changing as well, because it is their network. So I think the last one will be done. I think the last one will be at Fight Camp. And then AJ will obviously have another pay-per-view fight on Sky, which I'm assuming will be against Usyk if he doesn't drop the belt.
Right.
And then I know Eddie said the other day that there's a massive, massive deal that we're changing for AJ. So I imagine he'll probably go over to the Zone on some form of like pay-per-view Canelo sort of deal, and he'll be earning £300-400 million or whatever.
Yeah. Because he's already pretty much a billionaire, isn't he, Joshua? Isn't it?
I don't think he's that rich yet.
No.
I had this conversation the other day with my brother. I'd probably say he must have. See, my brother was saying to me about 150 million, and I was like, I still don't think that's right. I still don't think he's got that. I wouldn't be surprised if he could pull between 30 and 50, but I'd be extremely surprised if he's got any more in that. In terms of investment, I wouldn't know, but I'd say a safe bet that he's probably worth about 30-40 million quid.
Yeah.
Well, I think probably about 70. He's had a couple of big paydays. I think 70.
How much? Because he had to renegotiate the Pulev fight, didn't he? So I think he had to renegotiate that. I'm saying he renegotiated that. I think he only took home like a small piece of 15 million, maybe. But I think
hearing these things about Mayweather or even Joshua, becoming the first $1 billion fighter or something. I assume that's sort of like the total gate earnings or something like that. They used to Sugar Ray Leonard, his whole career earnings were like 100 million or something like that, 98 million or something. Total gross earnings over his career, and used to go wow like that. And then, since Mayweather and Canelo now, isn't it? They're just so much more. Yeah, still only young can make more still. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and what you were saying there about Floyd as well, do you think that Floyd, that there's an element in terms of investment, that he comes out and he does these fights, either A, because he loves being involved in the fight game, or B, there's an element actually during COVID that his money's dipped and he wants to pick it back up again?
It's interesting. Yeah, sorry, Dan. Yeah, no, because it's interesting you should say that, because Floyd apparently was quoted as saying, I don't need to fight because I've got enough money in the, fight properly, so to speak, because I've got enough money in the bank. I've sorted my finances are sorted. I'm settled, set for life kind of thing. So I can do these exhibitions. Whereas Manny Pacquiao, who's, I think, might be a bit older than Floyd, or they're about the same age.
Younger.
Manny's younger, yeah? That Manny needs to, I think, because Floyd's about 42, is it 43, 44, and Manny's about 41, 42, is it? In any case, he's attributed as saying Manny needs to fight. I don't need to fight. Manny's not looked after his money. I don't need to fight. So, that's so. I don't know, because a lot of these guys, they say they don't need the money, but ultimately, there's always some sort of dip there in their finances.
Well, it's just like, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they still go to work every day. It's not like they need the money, they can retire, but, but what I think it is you have to remember last year, everyone was locked up in their houses. When you're in a big mansion like that, you can quickly start going to things like drinking, drugs, depression. He's got no woman. He's a granddad now. His daughter's got a child.
Yeah.
Stuck in your house and you're restricted in Las Vegas. The strip he can't go down the strip because they was all closed. It was party pop. So he's a man who needs people around him. So for him to be able to get out and get certain exemptions, he would need to have to declare a valid reason why he has to go this place and that place. Like look at England, Anthony Joshua in December. He just needs to get out of the so get out of the house, has a reason to get up in the morning, go training down his open his gym, and reason why he can travel to this place and that place. So it's a good thing for mental health at the end of the day, because you've seen a lot of celebrities, they're turning to vices, drink, drugs, gambling, because they can't, they're not allowed to be around anybody. So He loves it. Being stuck in that mansion with what 20 bedrooms, you're gonna soon go off the walls.
Yeah.
You can't have more than 6 people. You know him; he likes to have about 20 women.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
sort of think like, this is the reason for him to get out, wake up, socialise with people, do touring around the world or whatever, and socialise. I think, and it's easy money. So yeah, why not?
I reckon you've hit the nail on the head on that. That has to be, because the guy, he's always had a massive entourage. He likes to be out, and I suppose it's like anything. When you've had that much success at it, it must become that addictive lifestyle that you have. And because he was always in that celebrity game, like I think he owns a strip club as well, and I think he's got like a couple of other clubs in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I think it's that life that you're talking about there, and for him mentally, he has to be in that limelight, whether it's at the front of his clubs or bars or in one of his Bugattis, etc. He has to be the centre and focus of attention, and that's not me discrediting the guy. He is used to that because he's built his life around that, so that is how it is. And I would imagine you take that away from somebody, and it probably would make him go insane.
Yeah. You saw last year, you see, he did a video of him in the gym training his son. His son don't want to box, but he just wants to train his son so he can put it on camera. Yeah. He started training his nephew. He started training these little amateur kids. Like, he needs to be, so as you said, once you become used to that lifestyle, you can't be stuck in 4 walls all the time where everything shuts down. He lived in Vegas where it's popping and busy. Yeah, that place was a ghost town. You're just living in a someone like him doesn't have people around him. He's going to go off the road. Do you know what I mean?
And I would imagine as well, like you're saying, there's this element where he's drawn to AJ because he probably sees so many similarities in the success that AJ's having in the boxing game. The fact is they've both probably got similar stories in terms of lifestyle and demographics. You know, they both come up the hard way. And it's probably refreshing for him to be able to feel like, do you know what, I've got a genuine connection with somebody here that actually we can have things in common. It's not like him just talking, as you say, to a young amateur that hasn't had that lifestyle or yet reached that pinnacle. And because of the respect that's probably shared between the two guys, it's almost natural that they would be drawn to each other.
Yeah.
Right, guys, I'm going to have to jump off because I've been on here long enough and we've sort of taken over the channel. We'll have to do this again, though. That was cool. I really enjoyed that tonight.
Yeah, cheers, Brett. Nice one,
cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Nice to meet you. Cheers. Take care. Bye. Yeah.
I think we've kind of
wrapped it up for now. Yeah, there was a few other topics, but I think then as Ben says, it overdoes it a bit. So we'll probably catch up with the Tyson Fury Joshua saga and the heavyweight saga, and also the John Pascal drugs thing when we get a chance, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think I'm on it for over an hour and a half, and I'm probably going to people's attention spans and stuff like that. But thank you for tuning in, guys. Make sure you follow and subscribe to Fight Fan TV Live.
And
we'll catch you soon. Take care. Bless. Peace.
And thanks, man. Thanks.